Okay. In South Carolina, just for viewers who may not be familiar with how judges are seated or are elected, share with viewers just the process there at maybe the different levels, but particularly from maybe the top down.
Great, thank you, Greg. That's something I have learned a great deal more. I think as you tacitly assume that every state, excuse me, that every state does it by the same procedure that you use.
Right.
And when you start traveling around meeting with other bars, you quickly find out that's not the case. We're in a very, very small minority, but I think it's a very good system. Any system can be improved or made better,
right.
But our judges, all state court judges, are elected by the legislature. And what the biggest benefit in my mind to that is it takes money, campaign contributions out of the picture. There are other states that the judges are elected in popular campaigns, and you
like in North Carolina.
North Carolina, you see billboards, vote for Joe Smith. He's honest, right, trustworthy, and I was just taken aback the first time I saw that, not having been exposed to that system.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I bet it is interesting. So, in all the state court positions, then in South Carolina, or virtually all
virtually
of them.
all.
Right.
Some of the judges, I think our probate judges are still popularly elected.
Right.
But the circuit court judges, which hear the criminal and civil matters, $10,000 or above,
right,
and the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court are all, and family court judges.
Family court,
are
yeah,
all elected. I shouldn't have left that. My husband's a family court judge. I would get in trouble for that.
That you would, and that's the 12th Circuit.
That is Florence and Marion, South Carolina.
Okay, good.
Although they are, as state judges, they travel all over the state. In fact, he's in Rock Hill this week holding court.
Is that right? Yes, right. Yes. And I think later on this week you're heading up to New York. Am I correct?
That is right. The American Bar Association is having their semi-annual meeting up there.
Right.
And we are excited.
Heading up tomorrow. That's exciting. Yeah. And we were talking about that a little earlier this morning before we started filming, the idea, particularly in the media there, even in Pakistan, that you've got some folks that will be in New York with you this week, some of the judges from Pakistan. Share with viewers a little bit about what you're expected to pick up while you're there.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I think it's actually the Rule of Law Committee of the ABA is having at one of their luncheon, their guest speakers will be Supreme Court judges from Pakistan, which, of course, in the past months, the country's ruler just single-handedly disbanded the Supreme Court, and those judges and the bar in general actually went out and demonstrated against that, very much putting themselves, their lives, their families' lives at risk.
Right.
And international pressure has come to bear and to get them reinstated and get the rule of law established again in Pakistan. So I think to get to hear firsthand from someone who has been through that type of experience will be a great opportunity.
Absolutely. How exciting. Now, in your role, is that the case for all presidents of state bars, that they travel to the American Bar Association, or most do travel up to the American Bar Association meetings wherever they're held? That's
correct. And the ABA meetings, there's usually a large convention each 6 months.
Right.
And we also have an organization that is the National Bar Presidents Group.
Okay.
And we meet generally a day or two before the actual ABA gets underway, but in conjunction with that and at the location of the meeting.
Now, the American Bar Association, is it different from the state bars? Is it volunteer or is it mandatory?
It is a voluntary organization.
Okay.
It is, I guess the difference mainly is just the fact that it is national in scope.
Right,
and
right.
It tries to sort of be the mouthpiece for the attorneys as a group.
Nationwide, yes, yes. I think I saw also that you've had an active role with the Trial Attorneys Association, or is there a group here in South Carolina? A little different, and I know our focus here is strengthening judicial independence in South Carolina and your role as president of the South Carolina Bar, but surely as a private practitioner, a trial attorney yourself, there's probably a good bit going on even in helping to strengthen judicial independence from the trial attorney's perspective.
There are. The two main groups, sort of on the two sides of a case, either the South Carolina Trial Lawyers or the South Carolina Defense Attorneys Association. And being a plaintiff's lawyer, a trial lawyer in practice, I am a longtime member of the South Carolina Trial Lawyers Association. And both associations, though, the trial lawyers as well as the defense lawyers, are working with us on the initiative of the judicial independence.
Good point. Yes, both sides obviously working with the South Carolina Bar on that. That's
one of those few issues that all attorneys can agree on.
Very definitely. And of course, when we think about, I know even former Chief Justice Harwell, who's been on Carolina People, even just last year, talking about this as a very important issue for him, not as a practicing member of the judiciary, but as a retired member, being able to talk a little more about it, the importance of judicial independence in South Carolina. It really is a big issue that a lot of folks need to be thinking about, but also, of course, he talks about the overbearing cost. I mean, a separate issue, just thinking about, there are a lot of issues day to day that people are thinking about in the legal profession. What are some other hot topics that viewers or that the South Carolina Bar is faced with right now that you're trying to get the word out? And we'll get back to some of the other ways that judicial independence has been threatened in South Carolina.
The Bar, one of the things we're trying to do is encourage more attorneys to serve in our legislature. Good. Historically, it was, I guess, predominantly attorneys, and just as I think the demands of practice and the pace of life and everything has progressed, we probably are at an all-time low with, I think, maybe 20% of the members of the legislature are lawyers. And just as I would like a doctor if I were having an operation, or an architect if I were building a house, I think it's important to have lawyers involved in the making of laws. We are trained to be very precise with the wording, and to think not only about the law that's in front of you, but how that's going to be applied and the ramifications that it might have in the field for which it's intended, or other ramifications in other fields. So I think it's important to keep a substantial. I mean, you certainly want lay people involved in that process as well, but I think we would be better served to have more lawyers in the legislature at this time.
For the non-lawyer legislators, there are a lot of attorneys around them who may not be legislators, but who help craft the laws to make sure that they can be evenly applied. Are there not? I mean, there are a lot of folks. If 80% of the legislature are non-attorneys, then surely there must be some attorneys around that help them.
There are staff attorneys, but of course the legislators have the prerogative of using that resource as much or as little as they deem appropriate.
Very important, yes. Well, we've just got a couple of minutes, Flo, and of course we want to highlight some of the ways that judicial independence has been threatened in South Carolina. If we run out, would you be willing to come back and be with us here tomorrow morning to share with viewers a little more about strengthening judicial independence in South Carolina?
I'd be delighted to do that.
Okay, great. Well, let's just talk about some of the ways that it has been threatened. I see a couple of them here, but share with viewers in particular some of the meat and potatoes of the ways it's been threatened here in South Carolina.
We have seen more political activity focused not at the legislative body where the laws are made, but focused on the judiciary. We have seen special interest groups getting involved in judicial campaigns, running ads, which had really not occurred before in South Carolina. The Bar had a pretty strong reaction against that, thinking that we all try as hard as we can to the degree possible to keep politics and biases totally out of the judicial system. And so to see a political entity coming forward and trying to exert pressure and influence on who was elected and was distasteful to the Bar. And this past election cycle, that did not occur. So we're hoping maybe that at least is one thing that has been nipped in the bud.
How about attacks on rulings? Are there ever attacks directly on rulings? I think you shared a little earlier about some examples of that. But.
There are different communities. The judges will issue a ruling, and what concerns us is that the attack ends up being based more either personally to one particular judge or to the judiciary, when all that judge is doing and can do is applying the laws that exist.
Very important, yeah. That sure is a very difficult position to be in oftentimes for members of the judiciary.
Absolutely.
Clearly being attacked and not being able to respond, as we talked about, and hoping that the commission or otherwise is doing a good job responding. I'm sure y'all are.
And especially in this day where not only do you want to respond, but it needs to be in that same media cycle probably to be effective.
Yeah. One of the other points there that I saw on the website, judicial accountability in ways that the South Carolina Bar is, examples that it's been threatened, the judicial independence has been threatened. But we want to get into that a little bit tomorrow and look forward to having you back.
Right. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Stay tuned. A little more Carolina people with the president of the South Carolina Bar, Flo Vinson, coming up next. It sounds simple, doesn't it? Just break it down, interpreting the law based on the facts of a case. Flo talked about it, the basis of what a judge does every day, interpreting the law based on the facts of a case. It's obviously a lot more difficult than that. There's a lot more that goes into it. That's part of the reason the South Carolina Bar is out talking about strengthening judicial independence. Judges have to be able to maintain that, to do what they do, but at the same time have someone to help protect them when they're being attacked, and they're being attacked every day. Judges are working hard, but they're making a difference, and clearly the South Carolina Bar recognizes there's still a lot more to talk about in strengthening judicial independence. We clearly ran out of time. We'll get Flo back tomorrow, but we still have, we can talk about law school for non-lawyers, a referral service that the South Carolina Bar does, a tremendous Ask a Lawyer program, one coming up on September 17th statewide, and some other great topics. Come back tomorrow for part 2 of Flo Vinson. Flo, thanks so much for being with us this morning.
Absolutely.
Yeah.